You are standing in a kitchen at 5:12 a.m., holding a suppressed pistol in one hand and a lunchbox in the other. The pistol is government property with the serial filed to a pale scar. The lunchbox is blue plastic with a cracked handle and two tortillas wrapped in foil for a boy who still sleeps with one sock on and one off. Coffee drips into a chipped mug. Your wife is at the sink rinsing rice for later. She does not ask why your duffel is heavier than usual. You do not ask why the pharmacy receipt on the counter says $86 for inhaler refills and antibiotics. The bills are stacked under a magnet shaped like Florida. Gas, water, internet, copay, school lunch balance. There is blood under your thumbnail from a man you zip-tied 6 hours ago. You scrape it off with a butter knife and put the knife back in the drawer. By 8:40 a.m., you are 11,000 feet over a country your government publicly supports and privately edits. The target package sits on a tablet between your knees. Male, 47. Engineer by degree. Financier by function. He moves fentanyl precursors through farm cooperatives, launders through poultry exports, and pays 3 provincial governors on the first Monday of every month. He has a wife, 2 daughters, a driver with a club foot. He also pays for roadside bombs and videos of men kneeling in orange jumpsuits. The file says capture of feasible. The kernel says feasible means clean, fast, deniable, and under 4 minutes from breach to wheels up. You have 6 operators, 1 interpreter, 1 dog, and 1 pilot who skims mountain ridges at 142 knots. Because radar gaps are narrow and the weather is cheaper than stealth. This is not the first time you lead men into a house where a family keeps spoons in a drawer and shoes by the door. That is the trick. Most doors in the world look normal. Behind them is rent, cough syrup, cartoons, debt. Behind some of them is a radio, a ledger, a hidden room, and enough cash to buy 10 police captains and 3 funerals. The job teaches you arithmetic before ideology. How much charge on the hinge? How many seconds to clear a hallway? How many pounds a body loses after 3 days in a dry room? How many names break loose when the electricity cuts out and the backup generator fails? You do not start here. Nobody does. Nobody wakes up age 19 and says, I want to become a lever the state pulls in darkness. You start with a recruiter in a strip mall office, under fluorescent lights. You start with a score on an aptitude test and a father whose back goes out in roofing season. You start with a checking account that dips below $40 twice a month. You start with patriotism because patriotism is cleaner than scarcity and photographs better. The first contract is $31,000 a year before taxes and a housing allowance if you marry fast enough. You marry. You deploy. You learn that danger has a schedule and paperwork has no end. You learn that every mission is a budget line with boots. The first man you kill is 213 yards away and carrying a radio. He is walking along an irrigation ditch in sandals. You squeeze. He folds at the waist and drops into reeds as if kneeling to pray. Everyone tells you the same thing after. Good shot, good stop, nice correction on wind. Nobody says his radio still crackles for 14 seconds after he falls. Nobody says the water around his face goes dark in a thin bloom that moves downstream. You write a letter home about the heat and the food and leave out the rest. Your wife writes back that the landlord raised rent by $125 a month and your son needs a dental extraction not covered by insurance. You re-up before your first contract ends because the bonus is $18,000 and because the machine knows how to catch a man right where his family lives. Black work comes later. It arrives by invitation and omission. A captain you trust asks if you want more impact, more autonomy, better teams, less noise. He does not mention the legal fog. He does not mention the flights with no tail numbers. He does not mention the names changed in reports and the operations briefed to 7 people and denied by 50. He says you are disciplined. He says you keep men alive. He says your file has the right kind of blank spaces. That is how the ramp begins. Not with a cliff, with a better paycheck, with specialty pay, with a used SUV bought in cash, with your wife finally fixing the leak over the hallway because this month there is enough. You tell yourself your violence is narrow, surgical, accounted for. You are not some cartel butcher making examples on overpasses. You are not a militia commander skimming diesel and marrying a 15-year-old in exchange for a checkpoint. You are a professional. You hit a target. You isolate. You exploit. You exfiltrate. Then you come home and grill chicken on Sundays. You replace the brake pads yourself to save $280. You sit at a folding table helping with 3rd grade math, while in another time zone, a man you rendered to a partner unit loses 3 fingernails to a set of pliers made in Taiwan and sold online for $19.99. That is the dual language, official and real. Official says partner force. Real says men with scarves, amphetamine breath, and no chain of custody. Official says kinetic action. Real says bone fragments and drywall. Official says high-value detainee. Real says a hood over a head and knees zip-tied until ankles swell. Official says collateral estimate under threshold. Real says a child found under a bed with urine on the sheets and dust in her nose because the flashbang lit the room white at 2:06 a.m. You learn the underworld of state power is still an underworld. It has fixers, brokers, smugglers, informants who sell cousins in one village and feed rebels in the next. A source gives you a location for $3,000 in cash, then asks if you can help his brother get a visa. A police chief asks for fuel vouchers. A customs supervisor wants night vision batteries and medicine for his mother. Every secret has a price. Sometimes the price is money. Sometimes it is immunity. Sometimes it is a body taken off a road before sunrise. So local journalists can keep their jobs and your embassy can keep its sentence structure clean. You build your team on competence, not loyalty, because loyalty gets men killed slower. One breacher with wrists like cable and a nicotine patch on his forearm. One medic who can cut a chest open in a moving truck. One sniper who sends half his pay to an ex-wife and still remembers every range card from Helmand. One comms man who speaks 3 dialects badly but hears lies instantly. They call you boss when they are joking and sir when bullets pass close. You know their blood types, their kids' names, their divorce statuses, their painkiller habits. You know who flinches at dogs and who cannot sleep without a fan running. Leadership is inventory with pulse. The first crack in the fantasy comes with a man named Ellis, 41, 2 tours more than you. Calm hands, cheap wedding band. He can strip an M4 blindfolded in 46 seconds and brew coffee thick enough to stand a spoon. He is the one who tells rookies to tape their spare batteries inside the plate carrier so body heat does not kill charge in winter. He is the one who carries gummy bears in a cargo pocket for local kids during daytime liaison visits. He is also the one left behind politically. It happens on a mission nobody will admit exists. Border region, dry hills, goat paths. You are there for a chemist moving precursor compounds under aid shipments. The source is thin but timed well. You push anyway because a senator is visiting the region in 72 hours, and command wants action before cameras land. Inside the compound, there is less resistance than expected. That should warn you. It does not. The blast comes from the floor, not the door. Pressure plate under a rug. Ellis takes the hit from shin to hip. The lower half of his right leg leaves first. Then sound catches up. Your medic clamps, packs, shouts numbers. Tourniquet at high thigh. Second tourniquet. Morphine withheld because pressure is collapsing. The helicopter is 17 minutes out. Ellis dies at minute 11, looking at the ceiling, saying he forgot to pay his daughter's softball fee. Back at the temporary site, command asks 3 questions. Was the target confirmed? Was sensitive equipment recovered? Did host nation forces witness any unauthorized techniques? They ask about Ellis. Fourth, the death benefit processes in 19 business days. His wife gets a folded flag, $400,000 in insurance, and a paragraph about valor signed by a man who never meets him. The operation receives a revised legal memo and a recommendation to improve floor search discipline. That is when you understand. You are not brothers in some sacred order. You are expensive tools. Durable, useful, replaceable. The machine respects output, not sacrifice. Sacrifice is expected overhead. After that, you count differently. Not just rounds and routes. You count funerals. You count lies told at kitchen tables. You count how many times your son asks why you miss birthdays, and whether the answer changes his face. You count the bottles in your garage fridge and stop at 4. Because 5 means the next morning starts with your hands shaking. You notice your wife watching the driveway before your flights, not because she is proud, but because she has learned to study your gait. If you limp, she heats water and says nothing. If your eyes look too flat, she keeps your son in his room a little longer. Then comes the operation that makes the rest of your life small. The target is not a bomb maker or courier, it is an accountant. 62, gray beard, type 2 diabetes. He handles payments across Shell NGOs, trucking firms, and a telecom reseller that moves encrypted traffic inside ordinary billing data. On paper, he is worth more than 20 gunmen because numbers outlive bullets. He knows where money starts, where it pauses, and which officials get a cut. Capture matters. Alive matters. There is one window, a safe house on the edge of a capital city under the protection of an interior ministry unit already compromised. If you ask local permission, the target moves. If you move without permission, You cross a line written in diplomatic ink and erased in operational mud. You rehearse on plywood walls for 14 hours. Entry path, alternate stairwell, rooftop contingency. You shave 2 minutes by cutting the second exploitation bag and taking only drives, phones, ledgers, and paper IDs. The convoy uses municipal utility trucks because nobody questions men in reflective vests after midnight. Your interpreter rides in front holding forged maintenance work orders with a city seal copied down to the printer streaks. The whole thing depends on timing to the minute. Gate at 1:13, inner hall at 1:14, breach at 1:15, out by 1:19. Air support invisible but listening. At 1:12 the lights on the block go dead. Not your doing. Someone tips someone. Generators kick on one building over, then 2 more. The safe house remains dark. You hear engines where engines should not be. 3 SUVs. Fast. No lights. You know before anyone says it. Burned. You can abort. That is the clean option. Pull off, melt back into traffic, lose the target. Write the report. Endure the briefing room blame. Or push into a box closing from 2 sides, and gamble your people against politics and speed. You push. The gate chain snaps under hydraulic cutters. You are inside the courtyard in 6 seconds. The first guard is barefoot reaching for a rifle leaned against a plastic chair. 2 rounds center mass. He falls beside a bowl of watermelon seeds. The second guard is in the kitchen. He dies with dish soap on his hands. Upstairs, the accountant is awake, not surprised, already holding a phone and a compact pistol he does not know how to use. Your point man tackles him. The phone skids under a dresser. The pistol goes off once into plaster. You cuff him, hood him, bag the drives, sweep the desk, ledger, insulin pens, burner phones, stamped passports. Then the outer wall erupts. Ministry unit, supposed ally, different patch, same caliber. They flood the courtyard and shout your host nation's version of police, while firing through windows. Your team answers in short controlled bursts, because ammo is finite and because every round that leaves your barrel becomes a memo somewhere. The accountant starts yelling names through the hood. Ministers, colonels, a deputy minister's cousin. He knows exactly who is outside. Your interpreter says one sentence, and the room changes shape. They are not coming to arrest you. They are coming to recover him and erase the overlap. The exfil route to the trucks is dead. Stairwell blocked. Front room taking rounds. Rooftop is possible if the adjacent building remains clear, but that means climbing with a 62-year-old diabetic whose right knee drags and whose value depends on his tongue staying attached to his body. The sniper is hit, moving to a window. High shoulder, through and through, not fatal yet. The medic says he can still move if the bleeding stays packed. You have 90 seconds before the ministry team seals the alley, and maybe 180 before someone higher decides this problem is better solved with everyone inside dead and blamed on extremists. Then the accountant says he can make a call, not to surrender, to stop the shooting. He says there is a number in the phone under the dresser. He says the man outside takes orders. He says if he speaks, they will pause. Maybe. He also says if you remove the hood and uncuff one hand, he will cooperate. He says it in the tone of a banker discussing transfer fees. Flat. Efficient. Like all of this is an accounting discrepancy. You know the rule. Never uncuff a live package in a hot zone. You also know rules are written for rooms with air conditioning and enough distance to call mistakes lessons. Your sniper is fading. Your breacher is down to 2 magazines. The accountant is either your exit key or the knife aimed at your ribs. You make the choice that lets some people go home. You uncuff one hand, he reaches slower than you expect. Age, diabetes, or theater. He takes the phone, dials from memory, speaks 20 words. Calm, respectful. Then he looks straight at you through the edge of the hood and changes one word in the sentence. Just one. A word your interpreter catches half a beat late. Not hold. Kill. You shoot him through the mouth before the interpreter finishes translating. The room goes silent for 1 clean second, because even gunfire has gaps. Then everything moves at once. You grab the drives and ledger. The medic drags the sniper. The breacher blows the rooftop access. You cross 2 roofs, jump a gap of 6 feet over an alley full of trash bags and satellite dishes, and slide down an unfinished stairwell smelling of wet cement and cat urine. A drone overhead marks vehicle movement. The pilot threads in low enough to rattle loose sheet metal. Extraction comes off a soccer field behind a school where cartoon animals are painted on the wall. At 1:27, you are airborne with 1 wounded man, 1 dead target, and enough evidence to embarrass 3 governments if anyone ever admits where it came from. Officially, the mission is a partial success. Sensitive media recovered. Network disruption likely. No attribution. Unofficially, you killed the one man who could map the entire payment architecture because he tried to trade your team's lives for his own continuity. Some analyst in Virginia spends 6 months reconstructing fragments from drives you pulled under fire. They build a picture. Incomplete. Usable. Promotions happen above you. Quiet commendations circulate below classified ceilings. The ministry unit loses 2 officers in a counter-terrorism misunderstanding and gains new vehicles the next quarter. Nobody is punished. The math works out for everyone except the dead and the wives. You come home with a limp and a suitcase that smells faintly of mildew and CLP. Your son asks if you can make his Saturday game. You say probably, which is the word men like you use when you mean no, but still want to be loved on credit. Your wife notices the split skin on your knuckles. She sets a plate down. Meatloaf, green beans, store-brand rolls. The roof no longer leaks. The inhalers are paid for. The SUV has new tires. Normal life sits there, funded by omission, by signatures, by nights with no moon and no flag on the shoulder. You chew and listen to your son explain a stolen base, while in your mind a man's teeth click against the bullet path and a hood darkens from the inside. People think the trap is death. It is not. Death is a line item, fast, clean in its own blunt way. The trap is continuation. The trap is surviving long enough to understand the structure and still cash the direct deposit. Every driveway becomes a place to scan mirrors. Every unknown number on your phone sits heavier than it should. Every parent at school pickup with a trimmed beard and mirrored sunglasses gets 3 extra seconds of your attention. You keep a pistol in a biometric safe by the bed and another in the hall closet behind board games. You know exactly how many steps from your bedroom to your son's room in the dark. 11 if you cut the corner. 12 if your knee is stiff. You tell yourself you do this because somebody has to stand in the seam where laws fail, and men with money buy teeth and fertilizer, and judges. That is partly true. You also do it because the machine trained you until ordinary life feels thin without threat, because competence here pays better than honesty anywhere else you can imagine. Because after enough years in hidden rooms, confession sounds less practical than silence. Because the same hand that signs off on violence also covers braces, copays, summer camps, and the mortgage principal. Dirty money is not always bills in a gym bag. Sometimes it is direct deposit with federal withholding. In the end, being a black ops leader does not turn you into a wolf or a ghost, or any of the cheap words people use when they want violence without paperwork. It turns you into a man who measures grocery aisles for fields of fire. A husband who checks window locks 3 times. A father who loves hard and watches harder. You beat the ambush. You outlive the targets. You keep your team breathing more often than not. But the system you serve does not release what it uses. It follows you home in habits and silence, in the way you sit facing doors, in the way every kindness now carries a receipt. You are not haunted by what you did. Haunted is for people who think the past is gone. Yours is present, accounted for, balanced daily. The prison is not guilt. It is vigilance that never clocks out. That's a wrap for today. The story you just heard is fiction, but covert operations and deniable state violence are entirely real. Right now, somewhere, a special operator is making a choice. If this made you think, drop a comment. Subscribe for more. See you in the next one.